Good morning, everybody. Well, we're back for another podcast session with these famous guys, or we're making them famous, really, aren't we? So today I have Lee and Josh from the Pilot Group. Lee, MD, Josh, Marketing. Do you just want to give us a quick, 10 seconds, who you are, what you do?
Yeah, I'm still the MD, luckily. Nothing's changed.
Good, sales are going well. Sales are up.
Sales are up. I hope so. I'm the MD of our energy management system business. Been with the business 12 months. We've seen a lot of growth in that time, so it's a really exciting time. So to be sat talking about it on a podcast is really
fantastic.
Exciting.
Yeah, good.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Josh, head of marketing. I don't think I have any more kind of quick lines or quirks to start with. I was only meant to be on one or two of these.
Yeah, he likes the lights. He likes the fame. He shows the links to his mum.
I think he said on one episode he wanted to be behind the camera, and now you can't get him away from being in front of him.
Well, I liked how, I think it was one of the sessions that Josh said he was the storyteller, and there's a lot about that, actually, because I think this is a great story to tell what you guys are doing. I think it's a really interesting space, really interesting time. Some of the people we've had on, certainly from the previous podcasts, and I know we're really enthusiastic to get some of those people back on. But today what I want to do is I want to talk about site surveys, because obviously none of this can actually happen. So Josh, when you are really on the top of your game in marketing, you've created this great noise and you've got people interested, and they go, yeah, we're interested in this, come and see us. Okay, so the next thing is they say, yeah, okay, so what we've got to do is we're going to have a site survey. So just talk me through who are the types of people. So you get there. Who are the types of people you're engaged with these site surveys?
It can be anybody in the business. Hopefully, decision makers. So we do a discovery call.
Yep.
Normally, before we actually go to site, and that discovery call will just be finding out the pinch points, finding out who we're going to be meeting on site, finding out budget, finding out who the decision makers are, and what the process would be in terms of if we were an option that we wanted to go with. What's the process then? Who does it need to go to sign off? Who needs to be in the room to pitch to? What do we need to do before that? And then when we go to site, hopefully we may have a couple more people from up the chain involved. But yeah, it could be head of sustainability, it could be operations manager, it could be a facilities manager, it could be a maintenance manager. It could be a number of people within a business, but I think we touched on it in a previous episode. It's just about finding champions in a business to begin with that are going to put it on the agenda for us, and then we find out who we need to be in front of when we get to the point of proposal.
So what's the sort of typical grunt work? So what's the homework you're asking those people to do? You know, what are some of the key facts you like to know? I mean, obviously appreciate sometimes you have to go dig in a bit more, and find that. But what's some of the sort of key information that's absolutely critical or you like to have on those site surveys?
Yeah, the main point is gas heating.
Yep.
Have you got gas heating? Where can we really help you? We know that in most cases where we've got normal heating systems with a normal time clock, we can go in and we can meet that guarantee that we offer of 25%. We know we can average a lot more than that. We've seen the case studies that are doing over 40%, in some cases 80%.
87.8, I think it is.
87.8.
Is that the top?
Yeah.
Is that the top score?
I was trying to keep it down, Keith.
Have you got like a leaderboard in the office or something?
I told you I'm in marketing here. I'm the one.
This is why he's on the camera.
Massaging the figures, amplifying them.
Yeah, so I think the first point is just to find out what the pain points are.
Yep.
Are you using gas? In what way are you using gas? Is it for heating a production line or is it for process? Once we've done that, it's about getting out then to survey, because we know we can really help them then. Yeah,
sure.
And then from that point is, we need to ask all the niggly questions of CapEx details and who do we need in a room? Have you got a big angry CFO or have you got a really nice CFO?
They're all angry, aren't they? I don't know. Sorry, CFOs.
Or is it just an MD and
sure.
you're outsourced finance and this is a conversation we have with your MD? Again, it's about the size of the business. I think Simon touched on it in one episode as well about whether they're internationally owned, as well. Do we need to have a conversation with someone?
So elevating that up across the group.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes. How many sites have you got? Is this a proof of concept to then roll out across a number of sites? So there's an element of things, but the key point is just finding out how they're managing the gas, and is it heating, is it production, and then we can go in and then we know we're going to save them from day one. It's pretty relevant, and I think that's where the frustrations come when you get to the end line and you're like, come on,
there you go.
Then things don't materialise as you wish because they've got spend that they need to put elsewhere, which is obviously it's a business. So
competing priorities.
Yeah,
and things
exactly.
Like that.
Yeah.
And that must be a real issue for you, Josh, in relation to how do we put the right messages with the right people to make that create that resonance, to create that real awareness.
Well, definitely. Well,
and create that excitement. So when you arrive on site, they actually these guys are on the money. They're gonna save us some big bucks.
Yeah, well, everything's a kind of an opportunity cost in a business, isn't it? You've got to choose between, if you spend on one thing, you typically can't spend on another unless you're very fortunate to have this vast budget. And I think we've had some recently that we've been really lucky. I think Phoebe came back, was it yesterday or the day before, said that she felt like she'd been interviewed, and for us that's the best thing, because it means someone's really intrigued in what our offering is and wants to learn more, so that they can have this full kind of educated picture. And whether they're the decision makers or not, actually at least they can then refer that message back, which is often can be where the kind of momentum gets lost, is when we're not the ones being able to pitch our own product, because we've got the passion for it, and unless we can convey that message perfectly to somebody else, that then they get it and they go, I'm going to run with this. And that's probably kind of the hard, almost step changer we have in this process.
I call it secondhand selling, because no one's going to sell it, or no one's going to be as passionate about it as you guys. And then you've got to empower someone to then maybe take that upstairs or to alignment or whoever that might be, which is a real challenge, I guess.
We need more Phils in every business.
Yeah, well, we were talking, when we on the previous podcast, we were talking to Simon from the Shield Group, and obviously he's a sort of a partner. He's, as we said, he's like a playmaker in your industry, bringing those relevant people together. So sometimes it might be that it's actually not best coming out of your mouth, but coming out of his mouth, because there's almost a neutrality there of saying, look, this is best practice.
It gives us credibility.
Of course it does.
No matter where we look at partnerships, it's always credibility, and for someone to be invested in our system and a customer to know that, well, what's Simon got to gain from introducing us? Not an awful lot. So it's about having that credibility through partnerships as well, and them championing the system as well, and we do the same. We champion a lot of partners just because we want to really help people reduce energy costs, and we can't do everything. We're not a master of everything. We do what we do really well, so then we want to introduce partners to help them on that journey even further. So it is important. Simon and people like Phil in an actual business are really important to us.
Yeah, and Gary, who we're going to have on.
Yeah, and Gary, hopefully. Yeah, Gary, ethical broker. Yeah, absolutely fantastic.
We're looking forward to having him on at the time.
Yeah, we're fortunate we've had loads. People like Green Economy, Business Growth Hub, who we work closely with, and I'm sure there's loads of businesses out there that we haven't had the opportunity to have this conversation with. We are selective about the people we partner with, because we want people to have this same kind of dream and mission that we are. We're here to help people. It's not just, we can sell a product into somewhere. We want to find these partners who are ones that we have this trust. I mean, we put a guarantee in place for a reason. We trust our product that much. Yeah. And we want to find these other partners who we have that same level of trust with. So I'm sure, hopefully there might be some people listening to this that actually go, we want to have a chat with the Pilot Group, because we see this avenue growing. So we can have this almost kind of conglomerative of this group of kind of partners, of people that go out and help businesses.
Well, Josh has put it out there, everybody. Anybody listening, if you want to be in the hot seat, come and experience the lights and be interviewed. It's not that bad. So when you're on site, one of the things I'm interested in, because obviously you go to a multitude of different businesses and environments. And one of the things I was reading up about the other day was just about zoning. And on that initial site visit, how much work goes into understanding the heat requirements of different areas of those buildings and those factories, for you to then say, okay, well, this is the type of sensor, or this is the type of setup we need here, but that's going to be different to over here to over here. How much actually of a deep dive do you go into at that point, or at that point are you just information gathering to get a sort of a big picture proposition? When does that real infinite degree of detail come in?
It's a bit of both.
Right.
We've got to get it right. So we've got to understand the needs. We've got to get the information of how the operation is working, when we need to heat and to what level. But also it's to make sure that once we've installed, there's not going to be any noise for that facilities manager, for that operations manager, or up the chain. Because what we don't want to do, like we've said previously, is people don't like change. And what we're doing is removing localised control to ensure that stakeholders have got better control of their systems to help optimise them. So to get all that information right, to make sure we're zoning, areas of high traffic, right, where people are walking, people are working to make sure that their welfare is looked after, but then also with the saving strategies in place as well, because we are reducing consumption, so the heat is going to minimise. So it's about making sure that once we've installed, it isn't a system that's labelled as it doesn't work, because that's everybody's first reaction when it's not heating, or it's not heating to the levels that it used to. It's noise, and people don't want noise when they're installing new systems. They want it to run as smoothly as possible. So it's making sure that we do the right due diligence when we're on site, to make sure that once that system is installed, we've gathered the right information to make sure that it's working in conjunction with doors, to make sure that when a door opens, at what level, what time afterwards do we want the heating to shut off? Because we don't want the heating shutting off when the door's only open for a minute. If the door's open for an hour, we want to shut it off out after 2 minutes to make sure that we're reducing that loss. But if a door's has been open and closed for a minute, there's no point in switching that heater off to switch it back on again. It's about gathering the right information, making sure we've got the right kilowatt of heaters, making sure they've got the right load within the unit to be able to heat to the temperatures that they're going to be setting, and then just to gather the right information on where do we put an outside sensor? Do we put it on the north face or the south face? It's all critical to making sure that once we've installed, that system runs as we've sold it and how we've pitched it to a business, not only from a savings point of view, but from a usage point of view, because it's still welfare at the end of the day. So we've got to make sure we get that right. We're not just going in switching the heating off. We're going in reducing the heating to a comfortable level to ensure that we can reduce consumption, and we remove localised control to give people a centralised strategy across the business. So we've got to get it right.
So do you look at things like ventilation? Do you look at air conditioning? Do you look at the whole, the infrastructure of heating that they have on site already is not powerful enough? It's too powerful. Are you getting into that degree of detail on any site visits? Because sometimes you could go on and just say, actually, look, you're working that heater far too hard. If we had another one, actually, it's going to balance the load a lot better. Sometimes do you see that? It's almost like, not a horror show, but it's almost like, actually, you need to be doing this a bit better. Do you find that's an easy delivery with prospects?
I don't think anything's an easy delivery in the sense of you're trying to pitch to someone how we believe that the warehouse should be structured or run or controlled. I think we're leaning into it probably more. We're fortunate we've got Jack in the team now who's on the HVAC side, who's very knowledgeable about AC, and knowledgeable about the capacity of the heaters. I think we also learn, once the system's installed, we learn a lot about people trying to use their heaters to a target temperature, especially when we get cold snaps. The heaters act kind of in a range. So if you're trying to heat something, and maybe we've had some cold snaps recently, it's been -8 and stuff, you're only going to get to a certain temperature. And by looking on the system, you'll be able to see that. And that's actually when you might have a reflection of, if we're not going to increase the heating capacity for this area, because we only get that in a very small time period of the year, then we may want to, when we do have a cold snap, reduce the target temperature so the heater's not constantly trying to work to hit a target temperature it's never going to actually reach.
Right, I get it.
If I've kind of explained that in the right way. I kind of joked before we came on this episode as well. Phoebe, who is probably the best at explaining a site.
Where are you, Phoebe?
Yeah, she's not available.
we actually,
your business needs you.
I think to put that further into context, I've had some customers who we've installed the system for savings, but also from a production fail point of view as well. So we will set a fallback temperature, and we can set temperatures to ensure that it's always kept at a range. And some days when it's colder periods, they're asking, well, why is it not hitting that temperature? It's like, well, you probably never hit that temperature because the heaters are only capable of heating to a certain kilowatt, and that's probably why you've had issues in the past, and that's why we're here. But we're here to advise that you probably need to re-look at the systems, and maybe it's maintenance, maybe it's upgrading. It's just giving them the knowledge that when production's crucial to a business, and you've got to have critical temperatures, then we can aid letting them know and giving them data and insights into how to make sure they better achieve that. And maybe it might be temporary. We might be able to forecast a cold snap and say you need to bring in some temp heaters just for a week or two. It might not be a whole year-round solution. It could just be a temporary solution to ensure that they don't have products that fail, they don't have systems that fail just because the heaters just aren't capable of reaching temperatures, but we can give them the data to show them why. So that's important. So it might not be always a case of at the beginning beginning, we can give that insight, but certainly once systems are installed with the degree raise and the outside temperatures, we can show people what the heater's output is actually capable of compared to what it actually is. It might be 30 kilowatt, it might only be achieving 20 kilowatt most days because it's coming to end of life, or it's got maintenance issues. So yeah, there's definitely challenges.
Well, I know you've just come back from, I don't think you did a site survey, I don't know, or whether it was a scoping meeting with the guys at the Worsted Group, which one of the largest printing groups across Europe. And obviously they run heat set web presses, which have a big requirement for gas at the press, which you're not controlling.
No.
But obviously that has an ambient heat in relation to release, but also that must have caused you some complexities in understanding that setup, for instance, completely unique to what you'd normally find, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the next stage of Wallstead is to understand how they utilise that heat usage.
Yeah.
Do they then redistribute it to heat the workforce, or is it just lost?
Yeah.
So it's understanding those factors and then specing the heaters to say, well, actually, you've actually getting a lot of heat from the presses, so you can redistribute that through different ventilation or heat recovery units to be able to distribute that elsewhere. So we've not got to that phase yet with Wallstead, but we're excited to get to that point where we can really look at what they're doing with that heat once it's lost out of the press and where that's distributed to. They couldn't answer those questions yesterday, but hopefully once we've got in there and we've surveyed, we can really do some great things with them. I think we've done it in the past with other printers and companies that have used gas as process that redistribute that heat to heat other areas. It could be a reception area that you're heating, it could be anywhere, but if you can remove a gas boiler or a gas heater from an area, it's a huge reduction on cost and energy.
Well, there's such an industry, aren't they, where the microscope is on them, the big magnifying glasses on the printer, because of sustainability. They're obviously having to use natural gas for the curing of the inks on the presses, so they've got to be putting out there to their marketplace that they're doing the very best they possibly can, which I guess you're giving them a competitive advantage with those conversations, which they're getting quite excited about.
Yes,
same with every industry. I think I think industries are becoming more they've probably always been consumer driven, but the consumers are now more aware of what kind of net zero and sustainability is. And actually, as the generations come through, I think you can see a lot in the data that the people, these younger generations, are actually driving that and will have a considered kind of do a bit of scoping on whether a business is sustainable or what they're trying to achieve before making that purchase now. And I see the way that the industry, I think, is going, that's going to only increase and more proportion of kind of a consumer base is going to be doing that research. So if you don't start now, maybe you be behind in the future. Somebody else might get ahead.
And again, we were talking earlier about Simon and about the partnerships and collaborations. That prime example there, you're just looking at the holistic requirement now about redistribution of energy, as well as making sure that you're optimizing heat to the very best way you possibly can. So before we just finish up, what do you think of the green lights and what are the red lights? So I would imagine you've got some war stories around site surveys that go, actually, this is a car crash, we can't do anything here, and the real green lights. I mean, what are the things you look for, really?
I think we've got more green lights now when we go to a site, when we get to site survey. The due diligence has been done by the CRM team. They're asking the right questions now, and that's only been through experience. We've got to a point now we're asking the right questions before we go to site. When we go to site, there's minimal disruption for any business in terms of it's a very non-intrusive survey. So long as we can get access to data in terms of energy bills, we can then go away and comfortably spec that and return, a really good proposal that demonstrates what our system can do. In terms of pain points from in terms of green lights and red lights, there's not many red lights anymore, because once we've got to site, it's normally of interest to someone and it's on the agenda. So at that point, it's normally a pretty easy sell, albeit, like we said, when it comes to capexes and priorities, it can get to a point where it stumbles at the last hurdle. But in terms of going out there, once we've got to that site, we know we can help them. We know we can guarantee. We won't go to site if we knew we couldn't help them anymore. And that's what we've learned from the past. I think a lot of our guys have been sometimes busy fools because they've just been going out chasing dreams almost. But now we're making sure we're asking the right questions at the first stage. stage to ensure that it's minimal impact on the business as well, because no one wants to be walking around to find out at the end of the day that we can't help them. We want to make sure we can help everybody we go and see, because people's time is precious.
Well, I guess also as well, you're getting an increasing business maturity about your brand, your product, your awareness, and I guess there's an element now where you talk, and there's all that history, that certainty, that understanding. You can say, look, that's what you need to do, and this is why. And you've got case studies or business cases and things like that. And Josh, I know that's something you're building in the marketing thing, to actually say, look, it's not just us. Look, this is real time. This is what we've achieved, and this is a typical case study aligned to your particular requirements, and it's about building that trust, I guess.
Definitely.
Yeah, massively. I think we've got case studies probably for most industries, but in terms of when you say kind of quote red light as such, we may choose not to go to site for our own solution, but this is what we've said in these kind of previous episodes about partnerships and stuff. I think we're now at probably a place where we don't just say we can't help. We go, we might not be able to help, but we have these people actually sound about right for your situation. Whereas most of the time, when we actually get to site now, we know you've already got the heaters that we can help with. It's just a case of doing due diligence on site, making sure that everything's what we expect it to be. Because we would never want to kind of, when you say chasing a dream, we don't want to sell someone a dream if we can't deliver it. And I think we're actually getting to the place where we pretty much, every time we pitch something, we know we're going to go out there and smash it for someone. And hence we have the conservative guarantee of 25%. But actually what we're achieving is some pretty special numbers for people now. And I think that's only going to continue. Yeah,
fantastic. Well, look, listen, that's been fascinating. I've just got to applaud you two, because obviously I threw you in the deep end this afternoon and said, right, we're going to have a go. I want to know about site surveys. So I think that's been great. I don't actually think we're going to need to edit any of that out. So thank you very much for your time. It's been really informative, and unless there's anything else you want to talk about, but it's been really good, and hopefully the listeners have found that quite reassuring. And you're going to have lots of phone calls with people asking you for site surveys.
Hopefully. I think we'll just get Phoebe to do a voiceover of all the parts that we might have missed instead.
I was going to say, we've not let Phoebe listen to this yet.
Yeah. We'll get her to do some plugins. That'd be fantastic. Lee, Josh, you've been great. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham.
Good to listen to you. And we'll see you next time for another version, another session of It's Not Just Hot Air. Thanks for listening today, and we look forward to having you join us again next time. But for now, it's time to close the shutter on another great episode of the Not Just Hot Air podcast.